Okay, um, so we are going to be jumping back into the assignment that I introduced before, and we left off a little bit further back than I thought we were, I think, with the majority of the class. So what I'm going to do, because I thought we were ahead, but perhaps we missed something, but it looks like I'm going to have to blend this with the next assignment. So a couple of things are going to change. Ultimately, what we've done so far is going to stay the same. We are essentially making some of the models that you see over there, right? So this is the bus station project, and you should have a handout for it still. If you don't, I can make a copy, but I'll do it on the break. When it comes to the size and scale and all the rules about the site, I'm more lenient than Iggy is, or so to speak, because I'm not necessarily concerned with those tiny little factors. What I'm concerned with is how you're using the software to create a design. So we learned a little bit about folded planes. We learned how to create this tessellated surface for the canopy, and we talked about tubes. And we kind of left it at that. And then we jumped into the more specific folded planes with thickness assignment. We will get back to that, but now we're jumping back to this assignment where we're going to take folded planes a step further and really test out how we did the workflow, how we're retaining how to do things in rapid succession, right? So it's a little redundant, although you now are going to be given opportunities to truly design. So we're blending just what I've prescribed as a process, where it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're done with the form that I've given you to make. And now you have to go through a process of trying to make your own decisions and then recalling or modifying those instructions to fit your need, right? So now we're moving into more of an autonomous way of doing things. So what you'll see, if you go to this folder, right, so it's just the general K Grenling folder, there's a file called folding strip PDF. And it looks like this. And I also have one here. Basically, there are 6 strips of paper, which is denoted in such a way where if you think about cutting this thing out as an actual sheet of paper, you would cut along the solid lines and you would fold along the dashed lines. So these are going to simulate even further folded planes explorations, except what I'm giving you is all of the, quote, fold lines, and you don't have to just fold them. So what I would like to see is that you start with this as a digital, strip. You'll split it. You'll rotate 3D to move it into place, and I'll walk you through one of them so that you see what I mean. But and you start rotating it into place, and then we're modifying it to make it our own. So we don't have to keep, entire bits and pieces of it. We can actually chop it up, rotate it further, modify it more to fit what we're trying to do with the assignment. The reason that I focus so much on workflow is because when you're in the design process, essentially, you're going to be asked to find the best design or the best solution that you can find in a relatively short period of time. So this is going to be sort of a simulated practice for you to catalog options in rapid succession. So it's a little bit different than what you might be used to so far, where we have one product, and that's all we're shooting for. So what we need to do essentially is get this line work into Rhino and then modify it to suit our needs. So I currently don't have any size or scale. Well, I kind of do. I know it's on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but that's not going to fit the size of a building. So for me, what I'm going to do is digitize this file into a JPEG, put it into Rhino, and trace over it. And then from there, I'm going to scale up the particular part of, for instance, this little block in the A. If I want that to be the base of my space, it needs to be approximately 1,000 square feet. So I'll scale it up to about 100 feet on one of the sides. And then I'm good to go to start folding it into a building. It's essentially that simple. So what you will have to do is convert this to a JPEG, and with this really silly version, I don't know how to do it on this version of, there we go, image, JPEG. So go to File, Export to, Image, and JPEG, and we're going to save that file in your personal folder for the project. So for me, it's here, folding strip JPEG. I think there are options to import PDFs, but PDFs are a little bit heavier files than a JPEG in some cases. So I just do low-res JPEGs for tracing procedures.
You just saved it as is, where it says save as type, you didn't change it. You just.
I think you could do a save as, actually. I did export too.
Okay. But once the window came up to rename it, I missed that. Did you do anything differently?
No. I left it the same. I guess save as would work just fine too.
Save as
Okay, so the next step then is we're going to insert. I know that there are a few ways of doing this, and Iggy might prefer to do a background file. We'll talk about that probably later down the road for warped surfaces where it's more important. But for a basic tracing exercise in 2 dimensions, insert should work just fine. I think this will allow me to do it. JPEG. No, it won't. Hold on. It's been a while since I've done that. Dark 121. Actually, maybe it is the PDF I wanted. Let's try that. Oh, check that out. It was an EPS already. Wow. Okay. Alright, so never mind then. Scratch that. Turns out the PDF was not flattened. It actually... Do you guys know what a flattened PDF is? Oh, okay, great. So PDFs are pretty versatile file types. They can carry a lot of extra information that you wouldn't expect from what is typically a raster format. Raster meaning it's built up out of pixels to create the image. PDFs can actually carry vector format. And then it has, kind of like Illustrator, it has all the information to create thickness and line weights and stuff like that. So if you go to File, Insert, not Insert, sorry, File, Import, you can simply input the folding strip PDF because it has vector information. It retains the vector information. It is not what's called flattened, where it simplifies the graphic into just pixels. Okay, so you open that up, and you can just hit OK, and it is going to give you line work. However, it's not necessarily the right kind of line work that we want, because if I look at my dashed line, it's actually a single line with a little dash and a little dash. And that's not really going to fly for us. So what I'll do in this case is create a layer, and I'm going to call it PDF ref. You can call it whatever you want that makes sense to you. But PDF ref is where I'm going to place that information. So I'll make it another color so you can see what it really is. Ah, yeah. So it also came in with the display color set to black. So even though I changed the color of the layer, I need to change the display color to by layer. A few of us have run into this yet, though I haven't formally introduced it to everyone. The colors can override the actual layer colors, and this is where you change it back in the general properties. So when you go back to by layer, this is what you're going to see. So at this point, it's actually pretty simple to, understand what we're going to do with it. We're going to draw a series of flat planes. We're going to draw a series of curves that we're going to chop up the planes along these dashed lines with. And then we're just going to break them apart and start folding them. So we need layers.
We should make it bigger.
What's that?
Mine is coming too tiny.
Oh, don't worry about it yet. Don't worry about the scale yet. Okay, so, but I want to kind of get into something here that's another file management thing for you. Now we have this geometry up here, right? So it's all of our site information, our building model, and everything like that. We also have this information down here, which is more process-based. So since we're kind of sculpting this thing, we're going to be making a lot of geometry that relates to this and only this to modify it, right? So extra curves. Once we actually get forms folded, we're going to create thickness and create a bunch of, subtractions and stuff for it. So while right now we're kind of teetering on the edge of order and chaos, you actually can create groups over here. And for some reason I can't see the button. Tools. Oh, where's that button? Well, you can do sublayers. Anyway, let me create a layer, and I'm going to call... Oh, no. How do I want to do this? Let me delete that. I'll do it this way. I'm going to rename this one, and I'm going to call this building. And then I'm going to create a new sublayer. And when you right-click it and you do new sublayer, what you see is... Huh? Sorry. Yeah, so what you see is that next to building, there's actually a little minus thing. If you click that, it collapses that whole list of layers, and then you can open it again. So if it works the way I think it does, you can just drag another layer into it, and it should work fine. Let me just try it. So we've got layer 7, which is in there, and then layer 8, which I should be able to just drag and put it in. Yeah, so it works like the folder structure like you would imagine. It's been a while since I've done that. So I'm going to have 2 layers. I'm going to have forms and modifiers for now. I might change it later on. Forms, modifiers. So the layer building is going to be it's going to be my primary kind of just like modeling and design folder, essentially. So forms I'll make red, and modifiers I'll make blue. I tend to use red and blue a lot. And this information is going to go on a 3rd layer, which I will call ref PDF, or whatever you want to call it. Orange. So change object layer, ref PDF. All right, building I'm just going to put back on black. Okay. The video is running a bit long here, but what I would like to see is that you've created a separate layer folder for it. You've inserted the CAD file, and you have 3 separate layers. You have something that you put your reference CAD lines on, something that you're going to use for modification geometry, and then something that you're going to use to actually build forms. What questions do you have? Okay, I'll be around to verify. Yeah.
Are we going to end up changing the size of that?
We are, yeah. Don't worry about scale yet.